My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever!
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous two-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Hello, everyone. Whoop, whoop. Another Wednesday coming at ya. Hi, ladies.
Hey. Hey. How's it going?
Oh, just getting ready to leave for Maui. Whoop, whoop.
I'm so jealous. Are you sure you don't need to pop us in your suitcase?
I already have 2 suitcases packed, which is insane for going away for only like 5 days, but we're flying Southwest and they give us 2 free check bags, so I'm going to take advantage of it because I don't know what I want to wear.
5 days with beach clothes. Like the smallest.
Well, I also have shoes. For every outfit, I have to have multiple shoes and 5 days, so I need at least 10 pairs of underwear because, you never know how often you're going to change it. And do you guys do that? Like pack way more underwear than you'll ever need on trips?
Oh, yeah, always. I always pack more everything. It's like I'm going to stay there for a whole month.
Yeah.
And it's only like 3 or 4 days.
We wear underwear or?
Oh, I personally will always wear underwear. I am proud to say it. I will go down in battle with anyone who wants to tell me that I don't need underwear. I sleep in it. I need something to be a barrier between my own body and whatever, my clothes, my sheets.
I don't sleep in underwear. I don't. I can't.
The only time you'll catch me in underwear is if I have on a dress. That's it.
I know. I'm the odd one out. Like I'm saying this not as a negative to you two and more of a, I know this is a me thing, but I will wear underwear with every single thing I ever do. Something about my body, my lady parts, if you will, touching anything else on the outside, I need a barrier.
I don't know why I immediately thought of like granny panties. Like I know I guess it's because you're saying underwear. So like when
you say granny panties,
you wear them like with workout pants.
Oh no. I should take you on a tour of my underwear drawer. We have our sexy underwear. We have our gym underwear. We have our house underwear. We have our sleep underwear. We have our period underwear. We have our, I want to be sexy. And this is more when I was dating. Like I want to be sexy, but not show too much. So there's a little cheeky lace. Like we have so many categories of underwear. I should probably go through it. I probably have 100 pairs of underwear.
Do y'all remember when Dr. Pepper did the home visits and she was like, "So show me your panties." And I showed her like 3 different type of panties too. Now that you say it's different underwear for different occasions, that is so true. It's like, which ones are your favorite? And I'm like, ooh, these cheetah ones right here, the seamless cheetah ones. Because you can't feel, they don't have any panty lines when you put them on.
Yeah.
So I like that type of material.
Well, I was pissed because Pastor Cal actually did my home visit. And I remember before I thought a home visit was coming up, I had just obviously my underwear is separated by color and category. So I had just reorganized my entire drawer in case I had a home visit and they looked and Pastor Cal came and he was respectful and didn't go through my underwear drawer. I was like, no, you may go look. Please see all the beautiful work I've done.
Meanwhile, I'm like, you're not going to find anything in there. The only 3 pair I own might be in the wash. Like, there's none.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
You know what's funny is also, speaking of home visits, we'll go on a tangent for a second. I think the general public feels like it's like a surprise. And I feel like we knew. So I just remember I was like cleaning out my spice rack. Like I cleaned everything. And like I was throwing away the expired spices. I'm like going through every little nook and cranny of my apartment. Like, okay, are we organized? Is it looking good?
But you knew like that day would be the home visit, or you knew that there was one coming up at some point in that time?
I think I knew because they were like, we're going to film at your apartment.
Yeah, I didn't know that they were coming to film at my apartment either. I was like, okay. They kind of like tricked me. He was like, we're just going to come over to get some B-roll. And for people who don't know what B-roll is, it's just some action shots of you doing whatever you like to do around the house. So you're pretending to cook, you're pretending to wash or clean or journal or read or drink water or do yoga at home, whatever. So I had no idea Dr. Pepper was on the way over here. And so I'm sitting here making some soup, my little weight loss soup, which consists of like some chicken, zucchini, squash, tomatoes, and cilantro. And so she walks in and I'm like, who is this lady?
Oh my God. Yeah, I didn't know either. They tricked me with the same thing. And I was doing my makeup and I had eyeshadow on, I think both eyes. And they were like, okay, add a little more eyeshadow. We need to get just more filming. So I'm taking on eyeshadow onto one eye that I was planning to wipe off. And I hear the doorbell or the door knock. And I still have my eyeshadow brush in my hand and way too much eyeshadow on one eye. I was like, oh, the camera people, they probably locked themselves out. And I went to get the door and it was Pastor Cal. I'm like, you couldn't even let me wipe or put the makeup brush down. But I truly was surprised. Like, I knew we would have one coming up. So my home was prepared, but I didn't know it would be that day.
I don't know how I knew, but I feel like I think my producers were also just the goats. So they were like,
yeah,
we're going to do home visit. Like, they just don't, not to put them on blast. Connecticut's like, okay, never hiring them again.
Put your underwear out. We're doing a home visit.
I feel like it's better to know, though, like what's coming up next so you can prepare instead of like trying to be surprised or, tricking you.
Which is exactly why they didn't tell us.
And one of the assistants had like take Charlie on a walk because every time Pastor Cal and I would talk, he wanted to talk as well. So it would be like conversation about something, Charlie bark, Charlie bark. So they had to just take him for a walk. I was like, okay, dog, sorry, you don't know any of these people, but you're just going to go on this walk around the block. But it's fine.
And I will say that was the most helpful thing with the production crew. Like, they were so helpful with everybody's dogs. I just feel like they all pitched in to take good care of the dog family.
Oh, yeah, that is cute. I feel like they all grew really close with our animals. Like, even the audio and cameramen. And
because so many of them are away from their families the entire time they're working. So people with families and dogs, they don't see them for 3 months at a time. So our dogs became their dogs for a little bit.
Yeah, like 3 to 5, because you forget they start. I don't think they really go home much in between. Like, when we were talking to even the camera guys, they would get in like May and do all the hotel interviews and all that stuff. And then they're still getting footage of like, all the random B-roll, if you will, of like Nashville and buildings and all that kind of stuff. And then they don't have much time in between for the next season. It's like a couple months that they go home. So I think it's like 3 to 5 months that they're living in a city. And then they go home for like a couple days at a time, like no break in between. I couldn't do that.
No, not for me.
Speaking of getting those shots of like the hotels and the sky views and the cars going down the street, I don't think people think about that. But it's so funny since we've been on the show, because when I'm watching the mole and like when they're getting like the sunset or the opera in Australia and they're catching like certain lights and capturing certain things, I'm like, oh, I know what's going on behind the scenes. It's a good cameraman right there.
There's a drone flying somewhere.
Drone flying somewhere.
Back to how we started, that was a short tangent for us. So yay. So we're leaving for Hawaii, and it's funny because all the things that I think about now on vacation, I feel like I've been trained from when we went to Jamaica. Because I know Gina always likes to point this out because she suffered the worst from it, but we weren't allowed to wear sunglasses. And I remember there was one scene with you and Clint where it looks like you're having an eye breakdown because you're just so twitchy, and it's really just because they wanted you to look up and you don't have sunglasses. So now I pack sunglasses with me. I'm like, can I wear them? I can wear them. Like, we can have a conversation with sunglasses. I can bring multiple pairs.
I feel like I always looked pissed. Like, even when we had the infamous gingery features, she was like, I remember reading some comments on Facebook that were like, or Instagram or wherever, that were like, oh, she definitely doesn't like him. She can't even look at him. I was like, I can't look anywhere. I look like if I look up, I'm going to have a seizure. Like, I was like, this is so bad. And then when we had our group discussion about the same topic, remember we all got together and we were like, are you sure? We kept asking the cameramen, like, can we please wear them? Like, they're like, no, you can't. Sorry. Like, because it'll show the reflection of them in the sunglasses. And so I just remember we were all talking about things, and my head is just like tilted down and I'm like looking down. And so it appears that I'm upset or like I don't want to make eye contact with somebody, when in reality my eyes are so light that if anyone out there has light eyes, the struggle. Like, you literally cannot open them. It's like I look like I was having a seizure the whole time.
I had no idea that's the reason why we couldn't wear sunglasses, is because you would see their reflections. I just remember us having the girls' breakout where we were sitting by the beach and it was extremely hot out there. And I'm like, why did they have us roasting in the sun? Like, can you not record us sitting cute in the cabanas drinking our Bob Marley's? Like, oh my gosh. I was like, I am going to get a sunburn. It was insane. I'm like, give us an umbrella at least, because that will be shade. I don't have to have on sunglasses. Just give us the umbrella and we'll be fine.
It's like the brightest sun that could possibly exist. We're like almost to the equator. We can't put on any. Yeah, it is that. It's because if you have sunglasses on, you can see all the cameras in the reflection of your sunglasses.
That's what they say, like, even when you're driving. But I remember the Denver season, they wore sunglasses all the time. And Chris and I used to get so mad. We'd be like, sunglasses. They're wearing sunglasses and you couldn't see any reflection, but like, this is not safe to be driving without sunglasses right into the sun. But you saying the girls meetup reminded me, there's so many things that we filmed that didn't get shown, but I think probably one of my top 3 things that did not get shown was at our girls meetup on the beach on the honeymoon. They had us go in the water. There were drones. I literally felt like we were shooting a music video. We were all in a circle, like dancing around each other, doing hair flips, diving under the water like mermaids. That was probably my favorite moment of the honeymoon, besides like Chris and whatever. But that was so fun, and they did not show it for a single second. And if I could go and talk to those post-production editors and ask them, well, I'd have a lot of questions, but that would be one of them. Like, this was so fun.
Wait, when was this? What part was this?
Right after the Bob Marley's, which also, remember, we'd get those drinks. They'd be melted in like 1 minute. We're like, okay, I guess we're just drinking Bob Marley juice because it was so hot. But at the end of that whole talk, when we were all sitting together and just having our little meetup, they were like, why don't y'all go get in the water and like play around? And they're like, walk sexy. Yeah, like flip your hair. And we were all out there in the ocean.
I remember we were giving Baywatch for sure.
Yeah.
That was the best part. They should have opened up that entire episode with us running into the water looking like we're having a great time.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that is one of my favorite memories.
Because we baked in the sun for so long, I'm like, yes, let's run in the water. And I usually don't even, I'll go in the water to take a picture, but I don't usually like go out there, swim and play and dance in the water. No.
I know. I want to see so much of the lost footage. It's like when you take photos with someone, you're like, oh, let me see that. And you like, because you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's so much footage out there of us that we like just will never get to see.
I know. I wish they could at least send it to us. Like, we won't show it to anyone. We probably would, though. But just let us see what made the cutting room floor. Like, even our weddings, like, there were wedding speeches that didn't get shown and moments with our family. Like, I would love to see those moments. But they did give Shaq that footage of him and his grandmother that didn't, I don't know if it showed or not, but I know they sent that to him. And I thought that was really sweet after she passed away.
Yeah, that was super sweet of them to send it to him.
But I want the girls on the beach footage.
They can't even find us walking in our boots on our bachelorette day. So I doubt they record so much. So I doubt that they can find that.
We were supposed to re-record that, and I had lent the dress I wore to our bachelorette party to my friend in New York for her bachelorette party. So I had to have her FedEx overnight it, which cost like $150. They reimbursed me, thankfully. But she had to FedEx overnight this dress because we couldn't find it. I guess like the store I got it from couldn't get it to us in time because it was like an online retailer. So she had a FedEx overnight it. I had it all ready to go. And then they were like, oh, never mind. We're just going to cut that part out. So now I don't know why I can't get rid of the dress. Like, it's a memory now. I won't get rid of it because it's so funny to me when I see it.
We have a lot of keepsakes from being on the show. I will say that.
My friends were actually really happy that they left out a lot of the bachelorette party. They were terrified watching that footage because I feel like we weren't drinking much. I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't. And I felt like the brides weren't, but our people that we invited were like having a good time. They were taking tequila shots.
That was the one time I got like drunk during filming, was the bachelorette party.
I remember you being intoxicated. Nicole, it was so funny. It was hilarious. I'm like, this is a real, true music video. Like, we had the fake money. We were taking body shots. Like, I was like, oh, Nicole is having a great time. You go, girl. I was like, somebody has to do it. Go right ahead. And then they pull you to do OTF. And then like, so what do you think about Nicole? I said, I can't even remember. I said something along the lines like, she's having a great time.
I really did.
You know what will live forever is that meme of Nicole
with the dollar bill.
With the dollar bill. And then for those that don't know, Clint, so after you and Chris moved into your apartment together and still had your same, like Chris's old apartment and Clint moved in, remember you'd always send me memes to be like, well, it's time for Clint to pay rent. It would be like
landlady for a few months. So I would send the meme of me holding the dollar bill, like, time to collect rent.
So funny.
That is so funny. Speaking of like moving in with significant others, I feel like that was one of the most weirdest times to like go from the honeymoon, move in with your significant other. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like really happening. And then like, even in today's time with you two still living with your significant others, like what would you say as far as like in comparison? And Gina, you'll probably have to talk about two different ones because, you know, you and I are in different situations than Nicole, but like moving in with Clint versus like living with your significant other today, like what were some of like the high and low moments? And both of y'all can kind of like weigh in on this because I know for me, like Shaquille, he's very neat and very clean. And so am I. So like our house was always clean. Like his clothes were in his area. My clothes are in my area. The only thing I think I would get a little upset about when he and I were living together is just maybe like some of his beard hair. And so I'm like, oh gosh, let me just rinse this down the sink. I was like, why didn't he clean this up? But it wasn't like that all the time. It wasn't to the point to where it made me upset. I'm like, okay, like he didn't clean up this time, whatever. No big deal. But, and then sometimes y'all saw the receipts where he would just come home and be over it and go to bed. And I'm like, why am I even here? What is going on?
But you had great neighbors.
Thank God I had great neighbors, but
that was me. Chris and I were her neighbors. So that was a humble brag on myself.
As you should.
I was like terrified to move in. But I think it's because at that point, Clint and I hadn't like united on the same team yet. And so we had had such a tough honeymoon. I was pretty much like, I'm not feeling this. I felt like he felt the exact same. So we were like, this is already going to be very awkward. We keep having to have the same conversations over and over, which isn't fun. And I was just, when we got back from the honeymoon, I was like exhausted. Like I'm the type that I need a second to just like be alone and decompress. And we weren't given that. And so I was like, I just need even a day to like stay home for a night. And I remember our producer's like, you don't need to move in yet. Mind you, I think the viewers don't realize that that's like what is it? It's not even 2 full weeks after the weddings is when we actually move in. So it's not like, it's one of those things again where people watch and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they won't move in. And we're like, whoa, 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 take a step back. It's been like 1 week. It's not like we've been talking over this for 6 months. So that was the biggest thing is like when I moved in here with my boyfriend, we were together for a long time. So it was easy. We were already staying together naturally. But for that, it was pretty unnatural to try to move in. So I felt like it was forced. And I was like, I don't want to like sleep in the bed with him. I'm not feeling it. Like this, are we going to have to? And so Clint and I just ended up more like roommate than anything because we didn't even sleep in the same room, which we got in trouble for a lot of the time. But
Yeah, but you did what was comfortable for you.
So I will say Clint was a good roommate though. And the comparison between the two is dudes do not throw food away. They just don't. They want to eat food for like 2 weeks after they store it. That's what I've noticed between
What's a fun fact?
living with men.
That's funny. Well, I had never lived with a significant other before, and neither has Chris. So I was terrified because I'm not so much now because obviously 2 years in, I'm adjusted to it. But I was very much like this is my space. My home is my temple. I value my space. Like I would host people and let people come over. But even now, though, I really don't like having guests for too long because I'm always very aware of people in my space. So if people want to come for a weekend, great. But if I had someone saying like, I'm going to come spend a week with you, I would probably panic, even if it was like my family member. It's just something about someone else in my space. It's like that phrase, who moved my cheese? Like, I don't like my cheese moved. I have my routine. I like my things how they are. So I was really nervous about sharing a space with someone because I know when I need my alone time. I know when I want things a certain way. I want, things cleaned a certain way at a certain, just things placed in a certain spot. So I was very nervous that we would move in together and I wouldn't be able to handle that part of it. Like legitimately had nothing to do with who this man is. Do I have feelings for him? It was more of like, this person is not only in my space, but I'm in his space as well. Like we are joining things. So I was really nervous. And I remember when Chris and I both realized that we both work from home, we decided that I would go back to my apartment during the day to work and he would stay at our shared apartment because there just wasn't enough space for us both to work in the shared apartment and not be on top of each other because we were both on phone calls all day. So I would go back to my apartment and I would also be able to stay with Charlie. So that was good. And I was so excited about it because I felt like we were still going to be able to play house. Like, we'll live together at night and during the day I can do whatever I want. But it actually ended up being a lot easier than I thought. And probably maybe like 2 weeks into actually fully living together, I started to go home less and less because it's like, I don't want to be away all day and come home and play house. Like I want to actually be in the house. I would wake up, take Charlie to my apartment, go to the gym, go home, work, and then come to the shared apartment. So I wouldn't see Chris until we were filming at like 5 something. I was like, I want to see him in the morning. I want to go home after the gym and be able to see him. So I feel like I got to go at my own pace. But it was a huge adjustment because we live very differently. And I went from having one little dog who barely sheds to having 3 dogs, 2 of whom are huskies. And if you don't know anything about huskies, they shed. Very long story short, I actually got one of the best pieces of marriage advice I've ever gotten from Love is Blind. And it was, don't let roommate problems become marriage problems. And I still to this day think of that because there will be times where we're not very good roommates to each other. And I have to remind myself, like, we're both still figuring it out. We're both human. This is not a reflection of our marriage. So that was good advice, because if not, I would probably fight with him a lot more.
I will say that probably is one of the hardest adjustments to make is, getting to know your partner and living with them and figuring out what works around the household. And that's so good that you do remember that advice, because it can get frustrating. Like, oh my gosh, the dogs are shedding, or oh my gosh, you're not cleaning up, or you're not doing what needs to be done around the house. So I can understand how you like, okay, let me not even allow this to upset me and get me all frustrated, because you don't want to treat your partner mean because they're not doing something right around the house. Like if they're not washing the dishes properly before you put them in the dishwasher. I think we talked about that on an episode beforehand. But I had lived with a significant other before Shaquille and I moved in with each other. So like my previous relationship, my ex and I, we lived together for like on and off for 4 years. And so I'm an easy person. Honestly, I'm a very easy roommate because like I come in, I make for sure I put things where they're supposed to be placed. I'll cook, I'll clean up. Like it's not a problem. I'm in my own space, relaxed. So it's like I don't need much attention. And I feel like living with Shaquille, it was hard when it came to the point of us communicating and talking and actually enjoying living with one another, because we were also dealing with like work and then also dealing with filming. So it was times when we were like mentally drained to where we didn't even talk and communicate with each other. We were just like, half the time he went to go hang out with the guys and I'm like, are you here for them or me? Like, oh, I'm gonna go sit by the pool and talk to the guys to catch up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like we had this conversation several times before.
That bromance was real. Like they didn't show that bromance as much, but those pool days every night, they would just sit by the pool, talk shit about us as if I wasn't staring out the window like, I could see you. I'm a good lip reader.
Oh my gosh, seriously. And I'm like, what in the world is really going on? This is insane. Like, and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna get through this and we'll see how everything unfolds.
Meanwhile, I'm like, see ya.
Please, go to the pool.
Don't want to be here.
Please. No.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
This season, Instacart has your back to school. As in, they've got your back to school lunch favorites like snack packs and fresh fruit. And they've got your back to school supplies like backpacks, binders, and pencils. And they've got your back when your kid casually tells you they have a huge school project due tomorrow. Let's face it, we were all that kid. So first, call your parents to say I'm sorry, and then download the Instacart app to get delivery in as fast as 30 minutes all school year long. Get a $0 delivery fee with your first 3 orders while supplies last. Minimum $10 an order. Additional terms apply.
I never felt like it was totally different than actually living with a significant other. Like I had lived with a significant other before, and then Clint and I really did. We were both so busy in our own lives and jobs and then filming, And it would be, it's almost like it was awkward because they make you talk about so much during filming that it's not a real relationship. Like my boyfriend now will sit downstairs and we're not talking all the time. So in filming, you're talking all the time. So when it feels a little awkward when the cameras do leave, and I almost would be like, are we supposed to be talking? But you I think you're drained, so you don't want to talk. You just want to sit there. But then that feels awkward because you're like, I don't know. For me, it did because we were still getting to know each other and you've only known the person for a couple weeks. So Whereas now, I would say like 50% of our relationship that I'm in now is not talking. We're just existing together, and like whether we're cooking or watching a movie or playing on our own phones or whatever we're doing, even if we are spending time together, we're not always talking. So it's a little more comfortable than it was in that experience.
I do feel like now that you say that, that's actually, in my eyes at least, a sign of a really good relationship, because before I was in a really good relationship, I would always think like, I want to be with someone who is, you know, a jibber jabber like me, and we can talk to each other 24/7 and there's never a dull moment. And yes, Chris and I do talk all the time. We're always having fun, but I find the times where we both are silent, especially because we're both so chatty, that's when I feel so happy and content, because we can easily just exist. And it's life. Like, if the plan is to be together forever, we don't need to be talking, doing things 24/7. Like, to your point, we're cooking, we're on our own phones, like we're watching a movie in silence. And it's really nice because it doesn't feel like we need to fill those awkward silences.
It did feel like
Yeah.
that. When you're filming, you're like, the cameras would leave and I'd be like, okay, what do Clint and I need to talk about?
Well, because you
This feels weird.
don't get a chance to get to know each other off camera. Especially, I know my producer specifically said to us, like, don't have these important conversations off camera, or else we'll ask you to repeat them and it won't feel as organic as the first time. So we truly didn't really talk to each other about anything significant off camera in the beginning, because we were such rule followers, which ironic because I'm the biggest rule breaker. But it's really hard when the cameras leave or you have a day off, because you're like, okay, so what do we do?
I agree. And I feel the same way. It was moments too where Shaquille and I were like, okay, this is weird. Like, what are we going to talk about? But I will say, like, one time he and I did go on a date off camera, and it was the best night ever. Like, we were actually able to feel comfortable having a conversation with each other, and it wasn't people like they're filming or asking us to talk about a certain topic. Like, we went to this place called 60 Vines, and I love it. It's on 5th and Broadway. And we ate and drank wine and had pizza and had like a natural conversation. And it's like, even in my relationship that I'm in now, that's something that I had to learn. It's like, okay, we can exist with each other, because at first I'm like, I've always feel like we're supposed to be talking about something or getting to know each other, because you could always learn something new or talk about whatever's going on in the news, on a TV show, or with your family or at work. So I'm like, always felt like you're supposed to be talking, but it's like, no, I enjoy the moments too where we're just sitting there eating popcorn and watching a movie and maybe just falling asleep, or, you know, just watching something funny on Instagram. So I do appreciate those moments when we're like just existing with each other too, because it's like you're finding that balance.
I think it's also because our very first conversation that we ever had with each other, if you think about it, with them, like anything regarding the show was forced. It was like, you sit down, we're going to have you talk about this. We have questions about this. Like, there was never like organic conversation, especially I feel like in the beginning. So we almost had to learn how to have organic conversation.
Yeah.
And so we're like, okay, like when the cameras would leave, you're like, okay, well, I guess we should sit down and talk about this. Like, it felt unnatural to just coexist together and have a good time, because Clint and I had those times and we felt like friends the whole time. But I remember like when the camera was leaving, I'd be just like sitting on the kitchen counter. We'd be like eating pizza, talking about stuff. And it would feel like a natural conversation. We're like, okay, this is good. Like, this is what this should feel like. And it never felt forced. Or we like would go out to dinner for his, I took him out to dinner. What was that? Like literally days before decision day. And we had that chat about like how thankful we were for the process, how we don't regret it, how we felt like it's going to set us up for whatever relationship we're going to be in after this, and how if we had to go back and in the exact same moment and choose to do this again, we would have done it and we would have chosen the same person. So we like were able to have those kinds of conversations just at we went to Bourbon Steak, because that was like, both of us loved that restaurant. And it was just like an organic conversation, and the pressure is off of like, oh, what are they going to ask next, or what are we going to have to talk about? Like that I don't know the word I'm looking for, but that like tension is gone of like not knowing what's coming, you know?
I did feel so relieved after filming. When I came home after decision day, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't have to film anymore. I don't have to talk to this crazy man anymore. I can be back home in my own space. And it just felt so good. But I will tell y'all something funny about when we film. It's bedtime. When they're like, okay, let's do the bedtime. And then, you know, you're like, okay, good night. And then after they're gone, we get up and like, Nicole, Gina, where y'all at? What are y'all doing? What's going on?
Because you film bedtime at like 8 p.m.
I bet the world doesn't know that, right?
Or they'd be like, okay, we're going to turn off the light onto 3 because you would turn off the light, but someone at the door would turn off the main light. So it would look like the lights were out, but you obviously weren't getting up to do it.
They would have to sit for like 20 seconds after. So you'd just be like acting like you're asleep, like a kid. And then they like, all right, we're good. You can wrap. And you like throw the blankets off.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, y'all hungry? What are we eating for dinner?
Like, why am I going to sleep with my makeup on? No one's questioning this. Or even the morning scenes. Like now when I watch shows, I'm like, so they've just woken up, but they have their mics on. They have makeup. They have a full glass of water next to their bed. Like they have been up for at least half an hour. There was one, I don't know if they did it to you guys, but there was one time that they ambush woke us up. Did they do that to you?
No, we had the funniest like crew though in Jamaica. Every time they would come in, it would be so early and they would be like, oh, fuck, mom. We would, that was like our thing that we would say.
No, this was during filming, not the honeymoon. They came in, I think, because I would wake up around like 6:15 to go to the gym. So they knew they had to come in earlier than that because they kept asking me what time I woke up in the morning. This is really, why do you keep asking me? Something's going on. And then finally, my producer was like, listen, I'm only telling you this because of the dogs. We're going to come in one day this week. I'm not going to tell you what day, but it's going to be one day this week. Don't tell Chris because we need a real reaction. And I was like, well, if you wake me up and I don't know what day, it's going to be a real reaction for me. But they came in one day at 6 a.m. because they had the keys to our apartment to wake us up just to show, I guess, what we really looked like first thing in the morning. I'm like, okay. But we heard them because the dogs started going nuts at 6 a.m. So they probably woke Kirsten and Shaq up next door. And then I remember I was so like frantic. I started doing high kicks on the camera. You remember? I don't know if you remember. I would randomly just do high kicks all the time, and I pulled my hamstring because it was so early in the morning. It's such a random thought I just had.
You forgot to stretch. You forgot to stretch, Nicole. You forgot to stretch.
No, and the only reason that you're getting those ambushes is because of your producer.
Yeah. But it really, I'm laughing saying it because that to me was so funny because I really didn't tell Chris. I was like, I don't care. It's 15 minutes, whatever, earlier for me. Like, I think this will be hilarious. You want to get us waking up first thing? Okay. But it was really funny.
No, if they ambushed us, we'd just be like in our separate rooms to sleep. There wouldn't be any entertainment in that.
Just Hank. Hello, good morning.
Hank would be like peeping his head out like, good morning. Come in.
Every time they came rolling in, I'm like, come on in, take your shoes out. They already knew the drill. It would be like 7 pair of shoes outside of our door. They're
That's
like,
how
we're going to
we're filming.
house. You said that's how you would know?
Yeah, like if I walked by and saw shoes outside your front door, we knew you were filming with a bunch of people. So I would always knock on the door, and I forget, it doesn't even matter at this point, but you had one producer. There was like a time where you were switching producers, and there was one, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't someone I was familiar with. And she was like, you have to leave. And I was like, no, I'm allowed in there. And she's like, no, you're not. Like the other ones would mess around with me and let me like come in sometimes. And she was like, you have to go.
Great times, ladies. Great times.
It's funny looking back. Like I know it wasn't funny at the time. And honestly, I know this was a few minutes ago already, but you said that you were really happy after decision day because you got to go back to your space. But for me, I think that was one of the most stressful times was those maybe 2-3 weeks right after filming because I was still living with Chris. Like, we were trying to figure out our living situation towards the end of filming. I think our couples retreat, they really focused on us focusing on that. And I was like, okay, so I'm married to this man. We love each other. We said yes on decision day, but we were also just living in Fantasyland bubble life. So now we're figuring out where to live together. We're struggling on figuring out where to live together because we have 3 dogs. I know I want to be with this man, but do I really still want to be with him in the real world? Like, we're going to figure it all out. So the week, I think 10 days after filming, we had in between, we moved into our new apartment. So it was me, Chris, and our 3 dogs living and working from his 1-bedroom apartment. And
Oh my God.
that was probably the most stressful time of my entire marriage because we were dealing with not like the transition from not filming or filming to not filming. We were on top of each other. We were trying to figure out where to live. We were trying to move 2 apartments. We had the 3 dogs. We had very little space. Whew, getting anxious just thinking about it. It was
It's
tough.
probably also like figuring out what to do with dead time because you're used to everything being so scheduled out for filming too. You're like, now what do we do? Like,
Right. Like, it was a total life adjustment. Thankfully, the moving process took a lot of our free time, but every time I went to my apartment, so every day I would move some more stuff. As we ended up moving, you guys know this, but for our listeners, we ended up moving into an apartment in the building Chris was already living in. We upgraded to a 2-bedroom. So I was moving all of my stuff from my apartment to his apartment, and the new apartment was actually on the same floor as his old one. So when it was moving day, we just had to move all the stuff from his apartment down the hall, and then we took my furniture a separate day. So every day, more of my stuff was coming into his apartment. And at the end, I don't even know how we were able to stand up because it was just so much stuff in this one little apartment. And we also had, this is a little more, I mean, it's not even juicy, but we had to get 2 apartments in the same building because we weren't allowed 3 dogs. So our workaround was to have 2 apartments in the same building that we illegally, but we don't live there anymore, sublet to Clint, which is why I was his landlord. So that is how we got around the 3 dog situation. And then we had to buy a house because we got caught at the end. They were like, we know you have 3 dogs. I'm like, okay, well, we're moving out. So joke's on you.
Busted.
Yeah, well, there were 3 loud dogs, of course. And they saw us on the TV show. The girl in the leasing office, it was her last week working there and our last month living there. And she's like, yeah, I watch you guys in the show. Like, I know you have 3 dogs. I'm like, cool.
3 dogs between our 2 apartments. You're like, every night I go back down to the 1-bedroom and go to bed with my dog in there. It's crazy.
Exactly. You don't know where I'm sleeping. Meanwhile, they would just see Clint, like he would go into the leasing office to get his like skis delivered or whatever. And they were like, does this man live here? I'm like, no, he's just my cousin. He's just hanging with me.
They're like, we saw him on the show too.
Yeah, it wasn't a very good plan.
That is hilarious.
It worked for the time that it needed to work.
That's funny, but that sounds like a very stressful moment. And I remember you going through all of that, like the whole living situation, trying to figure it out, moving, getting the dog situated. I was like, ooh, goodness, they have their hands full over there. Meanwhile, I'm in my bed relaxing, watching a new show on Netflix.
Preach. Preach.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, it all worked out how it was supposed to. So I'm grateful we went through those little struggles in the beginning. So now we just have smooth sailing.
Meanwhile, I was like, I'm flying to Sedona, Arizona, then Tampa, then Canada. Good luck. See you later.
Yeah, you were not home for the entire month, I think, after
October. No, I was not. I was gone for like 3 weeks of October. And I'd already planned it when they had asked. They were like, oh, we're going to extend filming. I was like, no, we ain't. I was like, that's not in my contract.
Right. They gave us one original date for the end of filming, and then they decided they were going to shoot that post-decision day stuff. And I think they tried to trick us. Like, no, this is the end of filming. And we were all like, no. Except I know I couldn't find anywhere the documentation that said the original end date. even though I know we had it somewhere.
I think I had it in like text or something because I was asking for salon stuff. I was like, I need to know. And I was like also in the midst of pulling out of that lease and stuff. So I'd been working through so many contracts and agreements that I was like, no one is going to tell me that something's in a contract when it's not. I'm out of here.
Yeah, to get aggressive.
More. Yeah. So we just filmed some of the stuff before I left.
Well, I'm glad everything worked out the way it did, because it seems like, Gina, I know you are in a great living situation now. And Kirsten, do you have furniture now? I have actually not been to your apartment. Do you have furniture?
Did you get a nightstand yet?
No. When I tell you, I rewound and rewatched that part of that episode no less than 10 times. When you walk into Kirsten's apartment, she's like, I have just enough. And because I know you and know your humor and just your straight up matter of fact, like, we know that you were just, it's not like you don't have things. You just didn't, you only have what you need. But the way you said it, I might go back and watch it later, because you're just like, nope, it's just enough.
It's like, where does she put all her stuff next to her bed? There's like not a nightstand.
Yeah, and they made it look just like so bare and awful. It was crazy. I was like, whatever. I'm like, I have just enough. Like, I come home, I go to sleep, and then I go and leave the house. Like, I don't sit at home and sit here and do all that. No, I don't like sitting in the house, actually. Like,
yeah, you're not a
sometimes
homebody.
No, and it's like, sometimes I can count on my hands of how many days I turn on my TV in the living room. Like, I don't ever turn on the TV in the living room because I'm not really home. Like, when I wake up, I leave, go to the office or work out. I'm always doing something else. So I'm like, I have just enough. It's so funny you say that, Nicole, because I can hear myself. Oh, this is just enough. Whatever.
And then Shaq, he was like, it looked like the model apartment. It's like, where are your family photos? And you're like, right there. And they zoom in on a little keychain. Oh my God. I might go watch it after this, because it is probably my favorite scene of you and Shaq. It's just it's so true to who you are. But to your point, they don't preface it with like, you're just not home. So you don't need all of this stuff because you're never in your house. And it made it look like you are home, but you just don't have anything. And oh my God, it's so funny. I'm definitely going to watch it later and text you guys.
That is funny. I'm thinking about it right now, but I mean, and then too, like, I didn't plan on living here that long. So it's like majority of the times when I buy furniture, it's for that specific place. And when I move, I buy all new furniture again because it's a different layout. So I'm like,
Yeah.
well, and then it was the pandemic and things weren't shipping fast enough. And I had wanted something very particular. And once my mind is made up, I'm like, I'm not going to go look for anything else. And then they never shipped it. It was so cute. It was like some mirror looking furniture, but it never came. And I waited for months for it.
Well, you have just enough. And sometimes that's all you need.
It's so funny.
Well, ladies, I have to hop on a plane to Hawaii. So I'm going to cut this one a little short.
And we'll meet you there.
Yeah. I will unpack one suitcase. So one of you cut down to 50 pounds and you can get into the other one.
Dibs.
How about that?
I'll get in there. Aloha.
Aloha and happy anniversary.
Before we go, Nicole, I want to tell you this. Wait, have you ever visited Hawaii before?
For my senior trip in high school, they brought 100 of us to Hawaii, and I could save it for another day, but long story short, I was kicked out of the hotel and asked never to return. So we will not be going to Honolulu. We are going to Maui.
Thanks for saying that. I was wondering why you weren't going to Honolulu.
Didn't see it heading there. Didn't see it panning out that way, but okay.
Oh, no, me.
We're going to save that story for when you return because I want to hear this. I want it to be a long story long. But did you know that aloha means 3 different things?
I know hello and goodbye. What's the other one?
I love you or love.
Well, aloha.
Oh, aloha back.
That's how I'll end it today. Aloha, ladies.
Aloha.
Aloha, my love.
My name is Natasha Rothwell, and I'm here to tell you about my brand new show on Hulu called How to Die Alone. I play the character of Melissa. She has no ambition, no love life, and no money, but what she does have is a reason to be the badass she was meant to be. Huh? I can't say okay. She has a reason to be the woman she was meant to be. You know what? Just tell the bleep guy to stick around, because I'm just getting started. Stream How to Die Alone starting Friday, September 13th on Hulu.
The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
At the UPS Store, we ensure your small biz stands out with a variety of high-quality paper stock options, banners, posters, brochures, and more. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, pricing, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today and get your print on.